How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first ever Tiny Racers devlog. Um, so I really wanted to just keep this short, sweet, and simple, if at all possible. But right now, Tiny Racers is kind of all over the place. It's broken, and there's a lot of things going on that aren't necessarily the most efficient way of doing things. Um, so huge focus for the devlogs is going to be, trying to turn that around, obviously, targeting specific development tracks overall and getting something made that we can really play, honestly. That's obviously the most exciting part. Um, so this specific devlog is going to be everything about, working on the player model and mechanics that we currently have in the game. There's a lot to do with it. It's pretty messy. The camera's not working, the animations aren't working, and there's a few different features that I want to kind of touch on, fix, and add, just because I think it'll put the cherry on top for, playing your character. So let's get into it. So at this time, I kind of started breaking down what exactly was going wrong and kind of just messing around in the game. I needed to start, figuring out where I needed to go and start working on things. I initially discovered that the player actually started floating, in, just normally, and specifically when the animation occurred. So that became a prevalent issue in my mind. So I set that to start working on that, but I needed to check something else as well because I had been messing around with another third-person controller. So I went into the asset store and kind of downloaded one of those, started messing around with it. I thought maybe, this might be a better option than the cinemachine camera system that I was using for doing a lot of the, like, third-person perspective work in the game. At the time, it was kind of whatever. But I wanted the animations to look a little bit better because on the basic motions animation kit that I got off the asset store, the dummy model that they give you is kind of, it just looked better, and so I decided to kind of change my models up a little bit, change the bone positioning around, to kind of just give it a better look because my characters just looked like they were crouching down almost completely. And I noticed that by making the legs longer and repositioning the bones, I was able to kind of correct that issue, and they look a little bit nicer now with the animations that were provided in that kit, which was cool. And then I ended up solving the height issue, the floating issue, by just adjusting the rigid body, or sorry, the box collider for the character, and that ended up fixing that issue. So it was really nice. A bunch of nonsensical stuff that I probably didn't need to share, but I figured I'd include this section anyway. So for this next part of the video, I did kind of a bit of messing around. Um, Initially, I wanted to work on some of the animations, or at least the functionality of said animations. So I needed to create a collider to, like, say for example, detect the player landing on the ground from a jump. Beforehand, it was kind of specific to a scene that we had set up, and that wasn't going to work out very well long term for any scene that the player is going to be in. Um, so there's that, and then with that in mind, I kind of wanted to carry more efficiency into the player object in general. And this ended up taking me the longest time out of anything. I wanted a player object with all of the player things that I could drop from scene to scene, but also be able to change up, whatever model the player, the person playing the game wanted to use at that time. And with that, I needed to make sure that, you could essentially drop in a player model prefab, a character model prefab, and use that as your player and then switch between that at will. And so I kind of came up with this, like, character switcher idea. That took me the most time, and I didn't really finish that until the end of this devlog. But in addition to that, I ended up adding a bone to the player model, or the character model, so that the first person camera perspective would function a little bit better with cinemachine. So this next section, I didn't really do anything too crazy besides messing around with the models in Blender a bit, and a little bit of the code and stuff in Unity. I was trying to get everything to kind of work with the prefabs, and so I could basically make it so you could switch out between character models at will. For some reason, the models wanted to spawn in laying down flat, so I had to mess around in Blender with the rotations and things like that for a little bit. I think I got it all working though. This clip was actually sped up to 128 times speed, which is pretty crazy. And finally, I got to the part where I needed to import our curves and cavities little plugin that we found on the Unity Asset Store and purchased. It seemed like a really cool thing, but in order to get it to work the way that I wanted to, ultimately the entire project I wanted to convert to the universal render pipeline. So this little section is working on that. And things got a little messy, but it's okay. We worked it out. And at this point, I pretty much conceded that I have no idea what I'm doing, because I was trying to set up the universal render pipeline the same way that you set up the built-in render pipeline, and nothing was working. So I was really struggling for a little bit. So I sped this clip up a little bit, just because it's kind of boring and nonsensical. But ultimately, in the end, we ended up getting a finished product. Wait, hold on one sec. But we're not done yet, unfortunately. I ended up putting a little bit more work into getting the character models set up, writing up a quick guide for putting more character models into the game, and I did a ton of work actually off camera, because just trying to work on this whole character switching thing made me quite frustrated, and I ended up shutting it off and just kind of chilling out and doing, a little bit of work here and there. But I did end up getting something together where the characters can switch out. The animation stays between each model. I ended up having to rebind the animator to the new mesh every time you change it out. I update the anchors for the cameras so that they stay in the right position, or they stay anchored to the right bone. Unfortunately, some of the animations are broken. I believe I'm going backwards here, but you can see they're clearly moving forwards. That ends up being a rotation issue that I fixed later on. Like I said, I did do a bit of camera work, a bit of work off camera. But the next section is a lot more camera work that I ended up doing. So I'll go ahead and let that play through. I just want to stop and say that I ended up doing quite a bit of work on the jump animation here as well, so you'll see a bit of that throughout this clip. So I didn't really feel the need to go into every single detail on the changes that I made for the cinemachine cameras, because there were just little things that really made the difference in the way that it looks and feels. But other than just solving a couple different issues that I had with the cameras, everything turned out pretty decently. There's still a little issue with the camera kind of whipping around a little bit faster than it should at certain points. It's very inconsistent and strange, so that's definitely something I'm going to work on. But this next bit here should give you a little bit of a showcase of kind of the more finished work that I did. you liked everything that I worked on. I know I didn't really show a lot of the first-person view, but we'll see more of that in the future devlogs. There is a few more minor changes that need to be made, though, and we'll take care of those in the future in another devlog, because they are a little bit confusing for me right now. But for the next devlog right now, I have planned, I'm going to be adding in a phone that you can use almost as like a menu or to manage your gameplay experience. So that should be exciting, but let me know if you like this devlog. Leave a comment for what I can improve on. Maybe the sped up video is boring or unnecessary. Maybe I need to show more details of what I actually did in like a before and after format. And if you want to see any specific features in the game, just let me know. I hope everybody has an amazing week, and we'll see you in the next one.